Today we'll be looking at the Audi. This is the Q8 Sportsback e-Tron, and it is an EV. So first off, it's a very attractive SUV, and as you'll see, there's different models in the e-Tron series. And when you go into the e-Tron Q8, let's take a quick look at this one here. And so what we're looking at is this beautiful SUV. So it is very appealing. I think it's got a lot of style. I think it's got very nice choices in paint. The paints are really beautiful. And again, there's expect to pay depending on what kind of color you want. But let's take a quick look. Since it is an EV, let's jump right in. Let's talk about roughly what we're looking at. So from a range, they're talking about 285 miles, and they're talking also about a recharge time. So again, when they say recharge time is when you go into the DC chargers that are perhaps on the side of the road at Walmarts and so forth. You plug yourself in, and these will provide you with DC charging, fast charging, and of course, under certain perfect circumstances, so the weather has to be perfect and so forth, you could be charging 10% to 80%, so whole 70% there in 31 minutes. So roughly half an hour. Of course, do keep in mind these are ideal conditions. I keep repeating it because you will be disappointed if you're planning on using this on a regular basis and you're doing a lot of mileage or a lot of kilometers. You're going to potentially have to wait longer if you do have that charging step in your to your destination. So if it's something that is common, then you might want to consider something with more range or get something that's a hybrid instead. But usually you know what you're looking for, and you've probably come to the realization of what an EV entails as far as travel-wise and restrictions and range anxieties. So the DC charging is at 170 kilowatts, which is really nice. I mean, some of the other competitors at typically 150, some have less at 100, but this is strictly for DC charging. Most of you will most likely be charging these at home using a level 2 charger. Those are great. You come in at the end of the day, you plug it in the morning, it's all charged up, you're ready to go. So overall, it is a great experience. So let's take a look at some of the features. As you expect with a lot of the EVs, they have a lot of the newer, run-of-the-mill type of features, not only from a safety but from a comfort point of view. And of course, these come with, well, this is the rims. They're 20-inch, so the 5-arm aero ring. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other features. So horsepower. So they equate this to 402. It's really nice. And again, for the size of it and for the luxurious interior, it's a lot of horsepower, and it certainly is nice to drive these EVs because you get a lot of torque, you get a lot of, it goes. So unlike the normal, the gas engines, the ICE, where you press on the pedal and depending on the brand and models, you've got that little delay. Well, these things are pretty much instantaneous. That's why I love EVs. Of course, most people, I believe, will be buying this to carry their family around, and probably not from a performance point of view, but you're still getting a respectful, it's a mouthful, 5.4 seconds, so with boost engaged. So you've got 2 electric motors. So that's usually one at the rear and one at the front. And we're going to see a little diagram of that. And here's where they start talking a little bit about the battery. I'm not going to go on my usual rant on the batteries and temperatures and all that. I've got other videos for that. But so you've got a 114 kilowatt hour battery there. Keep in mind that that may not be, and we'll see in a moment, that may not be the usable amount of energy available to you. A lot of it is programmed. So let's take a quick look to see what else we've got. So they've got the rear. So they're talking a little bit about the rear engine. And again, it has to do with the speed. And here we go. We've got the range. They're talking about aerodynamics. It is a very beautiful vehicle, in my opinion. So let's see if you've got the gear ratio. I'm trying to get the. It's got an adaptive air suspension. I just found that out. So we do some research on these things. I sat in it, and it's there's always a little detail that you get to miss out. But as you can see from these pictures, it's just a lot of technology is built right in for convenience. Let's talk a little bit about the display. Now, the display I thought was very well laid out. All the controls are within reach. The buttons are well labeled. I'm saying buttons, a lot of it's touchscreen, but everything is well labeled. Everything is easy to understand, easy to use, and if you're going to get, let's face it, they're going to get a lot of older couples and older people that have the means to buy something like this. So you potentially get older generations, and they're not huge fans of extra buttons or extra, you can't make it complicated. So if anybody's ever seen my video on the Lexus RX, the older ones, we had a mouse, and that was just a disaster. These have obviously moved far, far away from those types of arcane technologies, and you'll end up with things like CarPlay and ability to plug in Android and so forth. So it's night and day, and it does morph. When you go from one brand to the other, you'll notice a lot of them are very similar, but they each have their own look and feel. So as you can tell, obviously the stereos on these things, the sound system are very good. This is Bang & Olufsen, and as you can tell, there's a lot of details. There's little lights on here. I think these are, do you really, it's nice to know if it's working or not. I've been in a situation where I plugged something in. I thought it was charging. Luckily for me, came back out about 20 minutes later and realized there's no light. I was like, whoops. So there was something wrong, and I was able to counter it, or else I would have been waiting for nothing. Well, I guess eventually I would have figured it out because the app wasn't going to tell me that it was charging. But it's just a lot of attention to details. And of course, they do link. Like a lot of car manufacturers now, they do have the app where you can go, and so you can remote, change the temperature in your car, so you could, potentially preheat or pre-cool the vehicle before you get into it if it's a very hot day or a very cold day. And and here they're talking about their Audi Connect. Like I said, a lot of brands now have their own app so that you can monitor things, you can see trip information and so forth. It's getting pretty standard. I'm not going to review this strictly on the app. Now, from a security point of view, a lot of these are conveniences until you hit something, I guess, then it call it a security feature for sure. But you've got the park assist, which is in the higher end models, and you've also have the cruise control. So this is an adaptive cruise control. I love this. If it's well done, cruise control with this feature, it takes a bit of worry out of your mind, because if you get distracted for even a second and you're on cruise control, in the old days they just kept going. It didn't matter if something was in front of you or someone slowed down. With this, you reach for something, to, I don't know, your cup or something, and all of a sudden you look back and someone's braking in front of you. Well, this would actually adapt to the speed of the vehicle ahead. Again, these features are very common in a lot of brands. I'm not going to say all the brands, because I'm sure you can find some, or potentially a lot of them, that don't have these types of features. Especially the older cars obviously don't have these. So a lot of manufacturers have put a lot of effort into this, primarily for safety, but it does become also a convenience, because it's less taxing on the driver, and you don't have to keep adjusting the speed, especially if you're on highways and someone's going a little faster, a little slower, a little faster. It can get annoying driving long distances. Now, you'll also find different views that they've integrated into these higher end systems now. So they've got a virtual 360 view. I think, again, it all depends on where you live. If you're in suburbia somewhere and you very rarely have obstacles or things around, this may seem like a bit of a gimmick. If you're in a very dense urban area where there's a lot of, potentially pedestrians and bicycles and people walking their dogs or whatnot, then it's always good to make sure that you don't have someone, a little kid on a tricycle behind you or something that you might have missed otherwise. So it's that extra security. And there is obviously improvements generation to generation of these, and they've gotten very good because they have sensors all around the car, or the SUV in this case, and you get nice, like a lot more warning than you would have had in the old days with the vehicles, with strictly using mirrors and so forth. The other thing is you've got a heads-up display on here, this is much higher end. Not everybody likes these. I'm indifferent. I've driven some of these, and I've actually, I remember thinking at one point, how do I turn this off as I was driving, and thought, oh, okay, I'll wait, and I didn't bother. But it's one of those, it's like it or you don't. So the other thing here is they have they call it the pre-sense front. And again, this is if there is an obstacle suddenly in front of the vehicle, your car will alert you, and there's a secondary mechanism depending on the time span, I guess. If it's something smack in front of you, by the time you hear the alert, it might already be braking for you. So it will prevent you from hitting, trees or posts or whatever might be in your way, and hopefully not anything, a person or a pet or an animal that would be in front of you. So here we go, and let's keep going. So now that we're talking about the rest, let's go ahead and click on build, and let's take a quick look at what we're looking at. Now, from, they're showing the exteriors. You've got multiple paints on here, and as I've mentioned, some of them come standard. If you're going to jump into, let's see, I believe that actually the only color is magnet gray that comes standard. If you want any of the other ones, and you've got multiple grays, I'm finding it interesting how they've got, gray metallic and magnet gray, and so Manhattan gray metallic. I mean, there's plasma blue. Anyway, all of these are about $600 US, rounding up, obviously. But let's see. So it shows you different colors here. I mean, these are all online. And so you're going basically from the 20-inch wheels here for $75,000. I'm going to round this up. And when you go into the higher end, so you've got the Premium Plus, you've got the Prestige, and the Launch Edition, and that's when you can move up to 21-inch on the higher trim. And of course, you're going to gain things like digital LEDs. You've got, so if you wanted, for example, the virtual 360, then you've got to be in the Premium Plus. And you'll get things also, like if you want the really high-end leather interior, this is where you get it. It's really nice, by the way. Now, like I said, it all depends on your budget, of course. You also want, black roof rails. You get extras in here, high-tech mesh inlays, and you have, let's see what else we've got that will be interesting. So here actually you've added, so the leather actually comes in to the Prestige, and you get the with piping is the difference here. See, ventilated front seats. Again, if you're looking for somewhere very hot, then I mean, this might be something that you absolutely want to have, not to burn your legs and so forth. If you're somewhere out in Arizona or southern Texas, then that might be, a must-have. At that point, you need to find the right trim. So let's not keep going on this, but let's talk a little bit about the interior. So it comes in multiple colors. Is very well put together. It's very comfortable, and as you'll notice by this video, there's a lot of room in the back. So if you've got 3 passengers in the back, it's not a problem. Because it is an EV, you'll notice there's not that huge bump in the middle of the back there. Since there is no transmission and so forth, it's electric motors, so they don't have to have all that extra space taken up in the cabin that would otherwise take up some room. So one of the things that I absolutely wanted to mention is the back. So what we're looking at is in cubic feet. The cargo space is 56.4. So this is width behind the front row, and if you've got these seats up for the back passengers, for example, then it reduces to 28.5, which is very acceptable. So if you have kids and you got to bring some hockey gear and so forth, is a very decent sized trunk in there. So that is my quick overview of the Audi. This is a Q8 e-Tron, and I'm Bob Pellerin, CTOBOB. I hope you've enjoyed this. Leave us some comments below. We'd love hearing from you, and of course we will try, hopefully in the future, to actually test drive one of these and give you some feedback on that. Now you can also reach us at www.ctobob.com. Make sure to pick up, if you're interested in artificial intelligence, one of my books. Look me up on Amazon. You can find me, just look up Bob Pellerin, and of course we'll see you in the next video.